Hi everybody, my name is Manuel Rodriguez and I will be giving today's informational speech on the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2, or simply COVID-19. Now, I know a lot of us do tend to already know a lot about COVID-19, but not many know about the history of it. So, initially, it's still unknown where the outbreak first started, but several early infected people had actually visited the Huanan Seafood Wholesale Market in Wuhan, China. And this is where its initial name came from, the Wuhan coronavirus outbreak. And symptoms to the coronavirus outbreak, to the coronavirus, do appear flu-like, which is how the coronavirus was able to disguise itself as simply as pneumonia. Because in early December 2019, China reported a new type of pneumonia that had reported the WHO about the new type of pneumonia that they had discovered. But at the time, they hadn't released full information on what they had at the time. It wasn't until February of 2020 that the virus would continue to spread across the globe, across Europe, across Asia, and across seas to Japan and Australia. In early March, it was actually reported that the first case in the United States was reported in Seattle, Washington, and as a result, the city later went into lockdown. And to prevent the spread of the virus, cities and states worked together to prevent the spread of the virus by locking down economies, by locking down buildings and businesses. So people would not be able to do normal life as they would, and the media just went bananas, and ultimately people panic bought. Empty store shelves, Stores lost their inventory simply overnight due to panic buying and misinformation, because there also was a lot of misinformation that was being spread through social medias. For example, there was a conspiracy that the coronavirus was a biological weapon made up by China to affect America. And while this was inherently not true, this still caused a lot of panic because it sparked World War fears. But China, just like the rest of the world, did have negative impact. Did have a substantial amount of deaths and infections, and it plummeted their economy. It plummeted the world into a recession, which we are still in as of October 2020. But however, during the initial lockdowns of the pandemic, many people didn't believe that the pandemic was serious, which is an issue that was mostly created by President Donald Trump, as he refused to admit that the virus was a real thing. And as the virus had appeared prior to the 2020 elections, he accused the Democrats of creating the virus as a hoax to deter voters away from him, which ultimately it was not true. It was not the case. The COVID-19 pandemic continued through March, June, July, and August. And throughout much of that, many have reported distortions of time, perceptions of time, and the and many have said that they have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 layoffs, which resulted in millions and millions and millions of people making unemployment claims to a point where it was worse than the 2008 global housing crash and 1929 than the 1929 Wall Street crash. This pandemic has upended many, many, many people's lives, as seen as high schools had to close, colleges closed. Many people were forced into their homes to watch the world from their computers or their phone screens, and this resulted in many odd pop culture evolutions. So during the initial lockdowns, people would be baking banana bread. Banana bread was trending, and people were obsessing over the new Tiger King documentary that had recently launched on Netflix. As everybody was home, so everybody just had watched it to see what the hype was about. People were also playing video games more, as Nintendo reported that the Nintendo Switch console had sold out. They Due to their own lockdowns, Nintendo was unable to keep up with the demand for Nintendo Switches, and Nintendo Switches were being sold at inflated prices on selling sites like eBay and Amazon for $600, $500, when the Nintendo Switch originally retails at $300. Ultimately, the coronavirus pandemic has affected mankind in a way that no pandemic has ever affected us the way it has, to where many are considering that their life will never ultimately go back to normal the way it was before the pandemic, which ultimately nobody can predict the future, but the best people can do is follow social distancing mandates, so wear your mask and wash your hands and do your best and do your part to ultimately not get infected and not infect others. Thank you.